Roman is the biggest bad guy character in professional wrestling.
When's the last time you got laid?
French Toast is the exchange student that you have like a 3-week affair with.
Like, we can see that you don't have pants on.
Can we tell the truth about Dusty sooner or later?
Bro, less people wanted that than are currently watching our stream.
And you know Vince, and you still think, are these true? It's like...
Welcome to the Mark It Down podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mark It Down podcast. It is 5:12 Eastern, and I'm potting on a Monday because even though WrestleMania week is a time of joy and is a time of excitement, we got to start off with a little bit of controversy, as CM Punk was on Ariel Helwani's show, and he went on quite the informative tour. He got in depth and candid about his departure from AEW, so far how it's been with WWE, what he's seen, what he's expected, and as always, when the man speaks, people listen, and it is informative. First off, let me just introduce, I am James Gisanti. It's a pleasure to have you guys here at the Mark It Down podcast. We are very much in the throes of WrestleMania week. We'll be covering Monday Night Raw later tonight. We will be covering AEW Dynamite on Wednesday. We will be covering Impact TNA on Thursday. We will have members of the pod at WrestleMania this weekend. We will be there for both nights of WrestleMania. We will be covering SmackDown. We will be covering House of Glory on Friday. We will be covering SmackDown Friday night. We'll be covering Ring of Honor Friday night. And we will be there through Monday to cover Monday Night Raw the night after WrestleMania. Always the biggest Raw of the year, typically. But let's try to focus on what we have in front of us, and that is, of course, the man himself, CM Punk. I am very upfront with you guys. I'm very honest with you guys. My patience for Punk has definitely been a little bit thinner than some of the other guys here on the podcast. I'm going to do my best to be as unbiased in my representation of the news as possible, but there is a lot to go through. Ariel conducted a very strong interview, got really personal with Punk about some things that I don't think we were expecting Punk to speak about, at least at this point. So let's try to get into it. First and foremost, they spoke about Punk's injury in the Royal Rumble. He said he tore his tricep pretty early in the match, and despite the injury, they did not call an audible towards the end of the match. The ending of the match went as planned, according to Punk. Cody was always going to win. That was always going to be the finish. And Punk got it handed to him. He gutted it out, and he made it to the end of that match, and he helped deliver quite the finish to Cody Rhodes' Royal Rumble story. See what I did there? Moving forward, I'm sorry, guys. There is a lot, so I had to write it down, so I'm checking it out now. He speaks about what went into his WWE return in the first place. His first appearance, his first interaction with WWE after becoming a free agent, after leaving WWE, was apparently the week of Thanksgiving. Apparently, everything happened very, very late in the game. There was not a lot of pre-talking, and then once they got into it, they really hammered out all the details, and he spoke to everyone he needed to speak to very quickly. He gave credit to Nick Khan, WWE higher-up Nick Khan, having stated that if it wasn't for Khan, who was probably the catalyst of everything, he doesn't know if he'd be back in WWE as it is. He said once Nick Khan got the ball rolling, he FaceTimed with Triple H, and in speaking with Triple H, that's where they got through a lot of stuff, his words, more or less, paraphrasing a little bit there. But they got through a lot of their issues, or they talked about a lot of their issues, and that set the stage for his return at Survivor Series. Apparently, Nick Khan did not realize that Punk did not have a no-compete clause in his contract, and Khan said he wished he knew that. By the way, I'm going to do my best to say which Khan it is moving forward, because there's a few of them in this conversation. But Nick Khan said he wished he knew that Punk didn't have a no-compete clause in his contract. Nick Khan was interested in Punk returning at the Royal Rumble, but supposedly Punk was adamant about his return being at Survivor Series. He wanted that old hometown pop in Chicago, and I don't blame him. It was a hell of a moment, and I'm glad that he stuck to his guns. I also want to give a little bit of credit to SRS, because that man is definitely running his victory lap right now, as SRS was the person who called and accurately reported the details of Punk's return, and quite frankly, nobody believed him. So good for you, SRS. Take it all in right now. You've earned it. You deserve it. You got it right when a lot of people didn't believe you, and a lot of people got it wrong. He said that he spoke with, going back into the details of who he spoke with, he spoke with Nick Khan the Monday before his return. So less than a full week, guys. That's crazy in terms of turnaround. He said that you could count on maybe two hands how many people actually knew about his return. I think that's huge. I love the fact that when the chips are down and it's time to make something cool happen, WWE can make mountains, can move mountains, guys. I'm sorry, I wasn't expecting to be on today. WWE can move mountains to make sure the fans get what they want, and they can do what's best for business. Another soundbite for WWE there. Punk confirmed Fightful's report that he visited friends in WWE back in May, but he was kicked out, his words. And this was when he was still under contract with AEW. He said that he showed up unannounced, and that the word he got from people in AEW, the word that he used was betrayed. Or I should say, the word that he heard people use was betrayed. He went on to talk about what he felt was the hypocrisy of that issue, as AEW had let many AEW talent, or specific AEW talent, appear on WWE TV. But he showed up backstage, and nobody knew until after the fact, and they had a problem with that. I do personally see a difference between a top talent visiting backstage when things aren't great, communication isn't great, and the relationship isn't great, visiting a rival company's locker room in their backstage area, versus the company allowing another talent to be on TV, another talent to be part of a segment, as long as the conversation is there. I do see how these are slightly different things, but I also understand where Punk is coming from and thinking that maybe it wasn't that big of a deal. My personal opinion, not going to talk about it, but it's not as black and white in my opinion. He kind of sprawled and spoke about something else really quickly. He talked about he's still doing commentary for CFFC, and that he tells them that their next show is April 12th. So if you're interested in hearing Punk do commentary for MMA, go check him out at CFFC April 12th. He said Punk spoke about signing his contract and walking right into Gorilla right before Survivor Series. He said that Triple H, Nick Khan, his wife, and his lawyer knew, and that might be it. That might be it. So they really pulled a rabbit out of their hat with that one, pulling off quite the magic trick to make that move happen and to keep it as big a secret as they did. Punk tells Ariel that he was watching the WWE program and he noticed that they were making lots of references to him. And he was thinking, in his words, should he be tanning? I have to believe that at least some feelers were out if they were willing to make all those references. But one second, guys. John, welcome to the chat. Thank you for being here, buddy. I appreciate it. he did look good when he showed up at Survivor Series. He was a little tan. He definitely he made that return look good. As I said, Punk told Hawani that Nick Khan wanted a Royal Rumble appearance, but Punk was adamant about the Survivor Series return, which again I think was the right call. Punk does mention having seen Vince McMahon once since he had returned to WWE, and it was at Titan Tower. He said that there was no positivity there, and he didn't read all the allegations about Vince. He did read the text messages and said that, in his words, they were indefensible. He said that he was shocked at how dumb he was, he being Vince, writing stuff down and leaving a paper trail. It's horrific. I think all the energy should be done to make reparations and amends. There are victims here. Well said by Punk. Definitely one of the few talents who are going to be able to get away with being as candid and being as brutally honest as he is. But he is CM Punk. I'm not worried about him. And good for him for using his platform to speak on this in the way it should be spoken about. To keep moving. When asked if things are better now that Vince is gone, he said this very succinctly: how do you say anything but that the business is better? It's hard to argue. WWE is hotter than it's ever been, and that's, well, I don't want to say ever been, but it's hotter than it's been in a very, very, very long time. And there are different hands on the wheel right now. So I wish we had gotten here in a different way. I wish a horrific news story didn't have to come out. I wish terrible things didn't need to happen to get this man gone. But we are here, and it is for the better. Now we start to get into some of the AEW stuff. Now this is where I think things get a little bit juicy, guys. And I want to say, I got to be clear, these are Punk's words. This is Punk's version of the story. We are inclined to believe his version of the story. We are inclined to believe that there are probably several different versions of this story, and there's probably some validity and some honesty on all sides when it comes to his relationship with AEW. But I will do my best to recant what Punk said, the way he said it, and to make it factual and not opinionated. Punk spoke about Jack Perry, and he spoke about the incident where he spoke to Perry on Collision. What he said was the second episode of Collision, where Tony Schiavone came to Punk to talk about asking him for help, to help talk to Jack Perry, who is in the middle of a feud with Hook and was planning on doing a spot backstage where he breaks the window of a rental car, or he breaks the window of a car in his chase with Hook. Apparently, Hook had been told no by several people. He had been told no by the doctor. He had been told no by Schiavone himself. He had been told no by several producers. And beyond being combative, he was also apparently very angry, apparently cursing out everybody who told him no. So Schiavone went to Punk for help, and Punk didn't really want anything to do with it. He had already made it clear that he did not think that the divide in the roster between Dynamite and Collision was going to work, and we're going to get into that in a second as well. But he did not want to get involved. In his words, he doesn't want to have to deal with it, because if he deals with it, people aren't going to like the way he deals with it. I think we nailed that one. He said that one of the big issues and one of the main reasons that he got involved and was trying to tell Perry no was that it was a rental car. And if they broke the rental car and returned it with a broken window, whatever rental organization that they were going through was probably going to see this and start to limit the rentals to professional wrestlers. Punk's words, Punk's concerns. He said that this was something that he had seen and experienced in the past, and he didn't want Perry to ruin it for the rest of the boys. JL in the comments. How are you, JL? JL saying, I'm sorry, didn't Brooks trash WWE when he left? I haven't listened to the interview, but dude just seems like a grifter. He is a hypocrite. JL, I'll be honest, like I've said throughout so far, I'm not sure if you saw or heard, I'm doing my best to just simply report what Punk is saying. I too have my own opinions on the things he's saying and how he's handled these conversations. I'll try to save that for the end. I just want to report what was said in the beginning. But yeah, truth be told, this is not the first time we've heard Phil Brooks, CM Punk, badmouth a company after he's left it. All I'm going to say in that regard. But yes, going back to the Punk's comments, he did not want to see a repeat of history where the boys were going to have a harder time renting cars and getting travel because of a situation like this. He made it clear that he did say, we don't do that here, meaning on Collision, on Saturdays. If you want to do stuff like that, go back to Wednesday, meaning Dynamite, the show that he's not on, and not with the people he's with. Punk tells Hawani that he was in his locker room when Jack Perry dropped the "It's real glass, cry me a river" line. Punk said he doesn't necessarily, he said he made it clear he didn't really want to get into the situation too much. He didn't want to talk about it in depth too much. But he was there and he told Tony, he brought it to Tony Khan and told him to deal with it. Now, I do want to backtrack just a little bit. My bad. Again, my notes are a little bit all over the place just because of how much there was. Punk had made it clear when he was hurt with the tricep injury, he had spoken to Tony Khan about releasing him. He had asked him about leaving, and he says that Tony did not grant him the release, as we know, and that Tony told him he couldn't let him go. He said that the people there don't want him here. He doesn't want to be there being AEW, and he would just think it would be best for him to leave. He spoke about the fact that, again, I'm going to reiterate, he did not think that the divide in the rosters was going to work. He did not think this was the solution to the problem. And he went along with it because he had to, according to Punk. But going to skip back ahead a little bit. Punk claims that he asked Jack Perry when he came back through the curtain, when he got backstage, why are you doing dumb internet shit on TV? His words. He claims that Perry told him to do something about it. And then Punk compared himself, and Punk compared it to something that Chael Sonnen once said, I can't let you get close to me. And Punk again reiterated the fact that he had asked Tony Khan to deal with it, but Tony said, in his words, what do you want me to do about it? So Punk decided to take things into his hands. He says he kind of defended himself a little bit, saying he didn't think what he did was too bad. He never threw a punch. He simply choked him out a little bit. His words, he choked him out a little bit. Samoa Joe told him to stop, and that was the end of that. Or that was the end of the situation there. Punk tells Ariel, and I think this is big, he told Ariel that when he went out at All In, he knew it was going to be his last match with the company. He says he still did it for Samoa Joe, Paul Turner, Jerry Lynn, and the fans. And I believe that to be true. I think whatever that situation was, and again, we're hearing a one-sided version of it through Punk, whatever that situation was, I think the writing was clear. The writing was on the wall. After All In, Punk was leaving. And if you go back and you watch that match, you watch Punk leaving the arena, leaving the up the ramp. It very much was the positioning, and it was the gesturing of a man who knew he was saying goodbye. So very interesting stuff from Punk on that, in that regard. He was told, Punk says that after the match, he was told that Jack Perry was asked to leave. Punk wanted to stay and watch the show and said that he asked if their jobs would be easier if he left. He then went and got Nando's and went back to his room. He says, and this is, again, very interesting to me, he tells Ariel that he and Tony Khan never spoke to each other after AEW All In. Punk says that he can't speak to what Tony Khan felt, but he doesn't think he did anything to make Tony Khan feel that way. Punk feels like he was slandered. That way being threatened. As we had seen, Tony Khan had gone on TV. He has made it clear in an interview that he had felt threatened by the actions of CM Punk. He had never felt like he was in danger the way he was at a wrestling event, the way he was in that situation with Punk. And Punk is refuting that. It's crazy, multiple points of view on this situation. Punk says that he still has a lot of friends in AEW and he hopes they continue to get paid and he wishes them all well. He does say, and this is the rough one, he says that while he thinks Tony Khan is a nice guy, he isn't a boss. Punk also talked about how in that situation, in the backstage area, after the incident with Perry, he called Tony Khan a clown and he said that he quit. He really didn't want to be there. He really didn't want to be there, guys. Punk confirmed an earlier report that he had went to AEW management following the original Hangman Page workers' rights promo, and he wanted them to do something about it. It's crazy how if certain things were handled at this point years ago, we would all be in such a better position. Or not all. AEW would be in such a better position than they are in right now. If things were handled just slightly differently, so much would be different. It's really a crazy thing to wrap my head around. Punk does say that he doesn't think he can talk about Brawl Out. He said he didn't have to sign an NDA for anything he did wrong, but he does say that he can't elaborate and that there is, in fact, an NDA in place. He also talks about how he regrets how he handled the media scrum for All Out, the infamous incident where he and the Elite got into it backstage. He did also humorously say he does not like scrums in general, and he thinks that they're pretty cringe. I like them, but depends on how they're used. Some people are better at them than others. Punk says he believes AEW will continue to exist as long as Tony Khan wants it to, because he will continue to pump as much money into it as he feels he needs to keep that company going. He talks about his priorities and how he feels they weren't aligned with the companies, with AEW's priorities and with the people who work there's priorities. He says that if you're more worried about 5-star ratings than attendance in your building, they aren't in the same type of business. Now, do I think he's wrong for that? No, I don't think he's wrong for that. I think he is right. Do I also think that it's very weird that the guy who made his name on the indies and was all about the people is a little more, I don't know. There's something there that felt a little off with me considering his upbringing in the wrestling business, but I understand his point of view on that one. Just, it's weird to hear, in my opinion. Punk talked about what his goals were with Collision, which was to draw at least one more ticket sold than the last time they were in the venue. I think Punk did have a lot of good intentions, even if it's not necessarily what he wanted. I think things got very murky for him, and he didn't know how to. A lot of people didn't know how to handle it. This was a big bite that I loved and I think is very, very interesting. Punk told Ariel that he thought numerous times that he was returning to WWE before he ever even went to AEW. Now, if you guys remember, Punk did do that Fox late night show or FX1 talk show type thing with Renee Young, or Renee Paquette, I should say. And a lot of names were on that, like Samoa Joe, Adam Cole. When he returned that night, there was Saraya and Booker T. So I do think that's kind of true. It kind of contradicts a lot of things Punk had said in the past, or at the very least, it makes us look at things that Punk said differently. But it's weird to think what could have happened. Punk reiterates that despite the criticisms, he wishes AEW well. He thinks that AEW, that he and AEW are, like I said, are in different businesses and mindsets. And if he realized that then, maybe he would have approached things differently. Man, I don't know that there's a right or wrong, but that is a pretty healthy perspective to have, I think. If you're just not on the same page as the people you're working with, sometimes it's just not going to work out despite the best of intentions from everybody involved. Although it could have probably gone a little bit better. In a not surprising bit of news to anybody, when asked about whether or not it was possible to bury the hatchet with Colt Cabana, Punk simply said, probably not. He did mention in something, this is, I think, we're hearing for the first time, Cabana did approach him sometime before the media scrum to talk so things wouldn't be awkward. He then told Colt he never talked to him without a lawyer. Moving on. When asked what he would say to Tony Khan if he ever encountered him or ran into him, he said, "Hey, Tony, how are you doing?" I believe him. I honestly do kind of believe him on that one. I don't think he wants there to be ill will. Things might not go well, but I don't think he's going to go in looking for the fight. When asked about the return or the potential return of AJ Lee to TV, Punk said most likely not. I don't think that's really surprising to anyone who's been paying attention to AJ Lee's story, but it would be really nice to see her one more time go out on much better terms than I think she did. Punk tells Helwani that he is doing the kickoff show both days of WrestleMania, and he's excited about it. Punk is great at that stuff. He's put a mic in front of him, and you know he's going to deliver. So I think it'll be very entertaining for the people watching before the show starts. He jokes that he likely would never have been allowed back on WWE TV with gray in his beard if Vince was still there. I think that's probably kind of true. Talking about his recovery from his tricep injury, Punk tells Helwani that he is cautiously optimistic that he can recover in half the time from his current tricep injury than he did from his previous tricep injury. He also says he's coming back for something, noting that there are stories for him to tell. He also mentions that the plan for WrestleMania 40 was CM Punk versus Seth Rollins in what he believes would have most likely been the main event of night one of WrestleMania 40. It's a shame. It is really sad. It is really a bummer to know what we could have had and granted, I'm very happy with what we're getting, but it's sad to know that what was sacrificed to get there. Moving on, we had more talking about Nick Khan. Punk then went back and spoke about his time in UFC, and in his words, "What the fuck was I thinking?" Look, it did not go well, but it takes a lot of balls to step into an octagon. So good for him for trying. Just, could have spent a little more time in training camp, probably. Just a little more time in training camp. He says he doesn't regret it and says that he was an ambitious guy. He fought at 170 pounds, and now he's 215. I do remember how he looked back then. He was cut. He had to have been miserable, but he did what he had to do. Moving on. I think I covered most of it, guys. But yeah, that was a lot of the CM Punk interview. That was, I got to, again, hats off to Ariel Helwani. He did a great job of moderating what was going to be a highly talked about interview. We're here, we're talking about it ourselves. Punk did what Punk does. He was not afraid to speak about what he felt he needed to talk about and what he was asked about. He did have a little bit of a filter. I will give him that. He definitely did have a little bit of a filter, knowing when to speak and when not to. But we got a lot more details, at least from one side of the story, from what has been on a lot of people's minds in the wrestling community. Many people are very happy CM Punk is back in WWE. Many people are very upset about how CM Punk's relationship with AEW finished. I think both sides are allowed to feel how they feel here, and I don't think anybody's wrong for feeling that way. I am disappointed that his relationship with AEW ended on such a sour note, but I am happy that he landed back in WWE, and Punk is going to be able to finish. I know how it sounds. He's going to be able to finish his story on his terms. Punk's career was too storied, was too important to the landscape of professional wrestling to not end on as close to a happy ending as possible. I think when you break it all down, when you look at the relationship between AEW and Punk, both sides probably needed to communicate a lot better than they did. I think both sides are in some ways at fault for how things were handled. I do like Tony Khan a lot. I think Tony did his best with the situation, but he needed to handle things a little more firmly. He needed to be, I don't agree with how Punk spoke about Khan. But he needed to be a little bit tougher of a boss. And he needed to put his foot down, and he needed to deal with situations as they came. And I don't think he necessarily did that. But again, we're seeing one side of the story. So I don't really know. None of us will ever really know. I do think it's interesting that, again, Punk is sort of the first person to actually be talking about these things. Anybody on the AEW side, whether it was the Elite, whether it was Jack Perry, whether it was Tony Khan, or anybody else, except for maybe Samoa Joe, nobody said anything. So I wonder if this opens up the floodgates to seeing if people from the AEW side are going to start talking about things. Like Punk said, there was an NDA in place regarding Brawl Out. So I don't know if we'll ever really hear the Elite side of things from that part of the story. But it seems there was no NDA regarding the Jack Perry stuff and his departure from the company. So maybe we will hear from the scapegoat himself, Jack Perry. Maybe we will hear Tony Khan speak about it. We know when Tony gets his buttons pushed, his Twitter blows up. So maybe we will see that happen. I don't know. At the end of the day, I really do want the Punk AEW stories to be put to bed. The company needs to move forward because Punk certainly did. And while Punk is definitely living the high life right now, and I mean, injury aside, when he comes back, you know he's in a guaranteed hot spot. But AEW has quite frankly struggled since the departure of CM Punk. Whether you want to attribute that to Punk or not, things have not been going as smoothly for the young company. So I hope all sides are able to recover in the long run. I really do. I am a fan of AEW. As much as it pains me sometimes, I am a fan of CM Punk. And I'm excited to see what happens with the end of his career in WWE. So time will tell what we can expect moving forward. But what did you guys think of the interview? Did Punk speak out of turn, in your opinion? Were there things that he said that you agreed with? Were there things that he said that you shook your head at? I don't know. Let us know in the comments. Like I said, we are going to be covering the rest of WrestleMania week. We have a lot of coverage. Nick, the Reverend, will be at Monday Night Raw tonight. He will be reporting live from the venue. So go check us out on our social media. So you can check us out on Instagram. You can check us out on Facebook, on X. You can check us out on TikTok. And I'm sure we're in other places. If you can't watch us, just listen to us. We're on wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am a visual guy. I have a face built for podcasts, but I don't think I'm looking too terrible on YouTube either. But yeah, guys, check us out. We are going to be, like I said, at WrestleMania. So expect a lot of fun shenanigans from the pod this week. We are doing giveaways for night 1 and night 2 of WrestleMania. Night 1, we will be giving away a Seth Rollins autographed poster. And on night 2, we will be giving away a Cody Rhodes signed poster. All you really got to do to be entered is follow us here on the YouTube channel and leave a comment on the live video when we're doing our live review of night 1 and night 2 of WrestleMania. So we will be live both nights. We have 2 chances to win cool prizes. We're going to be seeing if there's extra entries that you can do if you follow us on our social media, but we'll get back to you guys on that. But check us out on our social media. You can find it on our page. But guys, I am James Giasanti. This is the Mark It Down podcast. As always, watch wrestling. And as always, have a good day. Thanks, guys. And I'm trying to say goodbye. Later.